Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven, and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by Shibua. I'd like to open an account. As a small contractor, I often accept checks written for amounts over $5,000. I had received one of these and was unsure of it. I had heard this particular individual had issued rubber checks in the past, so I decided to cash it at their bank. My thought process was that I would then know immediately if it was valid, and at the same time avoid incurring any fees from my usual bank. I enter the small branch office and wait my turn. I then ask to cash the check and present my ID. The teller asks if I have an account, and I answer with a no. She then tells me they charge a $40 fee to cash checks for non-customers. I'm blown away as the check is written on their bank by one of their customers, and that fee is huge. I verify this is the case, and it is. So I asked to open a savings account. The teller, looking annoyed, starts pulling out paperwork. This is a small branch, and apparently here, the tellers also open the new accounts. There are only 2 tellers, and it's a Friday afternoon, so a line has begun to form. I'm given forms to fill. The teller incredibly gets everything entered as I complete each form. About 10 minutes go by, and I'm the proud owner of a new savings account, which I opened with the check in question. Good news, it was good. While counting out the change from the check, I hadn't needed to deposit all of it to open the savings account. The teller welcomes me to the bank and asks if there's anything else. The line behind me has grown and people are now waiting out the door. So I said I'd like to close my account and smile. The teller gives me the dirtiest look I've ever gotten and says I can't close it for 30 days after opening. Undeterred, I ask what the smallest amount I can leave in the savings account is. I'm told $5, so that's what I leave. I sign the withdrawal and am handed my cash. I thank the teller for her help and add that if the fees were more reasonable, it would have saved them money. At least 20 people in line as I walked out. I never did close the account and receive a statement by mail every month and have had for over 2 years. I know it's kind of a petty thing, but if it was you, would you find satisfaction in knowing that they were losing money every single time they sent you a statement in the mail over those 2 years? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Cat Dad Millhouse. Prove that you're just a bad photographer and your new camera is great? If you insist. This was over 15 years ago when digital SLRs were first becoming somewhat affordable to anyone who wasn't either wealthy or a professional photographer. I was in high school, had been a budding photographer for years already, and working in a small retail photo supply shop. I had a customer who appeared to be in his early 60s come in one Saturday and spend over an hour demoing just about every camera we sold. I honestly looked forward to those customers because it made the time go faster, and I generally enjoyed talking shop with people. Eventually, he settled on one that we both thought would suit his needs, and I rang him up. A few nights later, he comes back. I've already been given a heads up by the store's owner that this guy had called ahead, and he is pissed. When the customer arrives, he immediately accuses me of selling him a camera that's either broken or simply not good enough for what he wants to use it for. Taking pictures of his grandkids who, like most tiny children, are not always sitting perfectly still. It's too slow, it takes the picture after the kid's already done something, every photo is blurry, etc. I take him at his word, I have no reason not to, and examine the camera, changing some settings and snapping a few pictures as I go. I genuinely cannot find anything wrong with it at all. As gently as I can, I try to tell him that it may be a combination of using the wrong settings on the camera for what he's trying to photograph, while teaching him the right ones, and maybe a bit of slow reflexes that will develop with practice. Keep in mind that I'm young and terrified of losing my job, so believe me when I say I'm as delicate as I can be with the whole situation. But that was the wrong answer apparently. His solution: "Okay, hotshot, let's see you make it work. I'm going to wave my arms back and forth over my head, and I want you to take pictures when they're straight up." He insists that this will prove that the camera is too slow and can't take a sharp picture. He hands me the camera and starts doing his best "wave your hands in the air like you just don't care" right in the store. Snap, snap, snap. I hand the camera back and let him review the photos, each one showing the exact moment he wanted me to photograph perfectly sharp and in focus. He didn't say another word. He huffed, hastily shoved everything back into his camera bag, and stormed off. Sorry, sir, just doing what you asked me to. I'm just glad that although this guy was somewhat stubborn, he was able to at least, in a way, admit that they were wrong in the end. They didn't, continue to force the issue and make it a really uncomfortable situation. It's memorable, but not because they were outright belligerent, simply because OP proved them wrong. This next story is by Classic Ad 8925. Won't get off the train? Well, suit yourself. A few years ago, I was working as a conductor for a local train company. As we were about to leave a station, a warning was issued that something was wrong with a train signal transmitter. As per protocol, the passengers were asked to leave the train and move on to a replacement bus. Now, it was kind of late, around 7 or 8 p.m., and there was maybe about 20 people on board, so we didn't think much of it. About 10 minutes pass, and as I'm making my way to the back of the train to check a control panel, I notice a man still sitting in one of the seats in the last cart. I stop, a little confused, and I say, "Excuse me, sir, but perhaps you didn't hear before, the train is..." The man, not even looking up from his phone, tells me, "Yeah, I heard you." Me, now actually confused, pauses for a bit and then says, "Well, sir, you'll have to leave the train." "I'm sure we will be moving again soon." "Sir, that doesn't matter. No passengers are allowed to stay on the train." "Look, girlie," condescending AF I might add, "I'm not getting off this train just so you and your lazy friends up there," he points at the camera in the corner, "can have a break." As he spoke, he got up from his seat. This man was probably in his late 40s, easily 6'5" and 240 pounds, towering over my 5'4", 21-year-old skinny butt. I knew he was trying to intimidate me to leave, but since the cameras were on and he'd even pointed them out himself, I found it hard to believe he'd actually do something. So I pressed on. "Sir, I am asking you politely to step off this train." He huffed at me and sat back down without answering. "Sir?" "Nah," he just grunted at me. By this point, I'm getting frustrated and tired with this bigot. I muster my sternest look and voice and try one last time. "Sir, the train is not going to move and you are not allowed to be on it." "I said I'm not freaking moving. Are you really this dumb? Just shut the freak up and don't tell me anything unless it's that we're at the next station." "Well, alright." I paint on my customer smile and tell him with a sugary voice, "Alright, sir, I will." And I hear him mutter under his breath as I leave. I tell my coworker what happened, and he freaks out at first, but as we were not allowed to forcibly remove passengers ourselves, and the nearest security guard is 45 minutes away, I tell him to leave the situation to me. He reluctantly agrees. 20 minutes pass and the signal transmitter error is solved. We get permission to move and are told to go back to our starting station to wait for our next scheduled trip. This of course meaning we're turning around and not continuing our planned route. It doesn't take long from when we leave the station that there's a knock on my door. I know it's the man, but as he can't see into my cabin, I don't answer the door. A few more knocks and then he leaves. The trip back to our starting station takes about 45 minutes, and I call ahead to have a security guard waiting there for us. As we approach the station, I find the man pacing in the hallways, and I can tell he is absolutely furious. I'm trying so hard not to laugh out loud at his fat, tomato-red face. "Sir, we are nearing the next station." Him trembling over his words in anger, "This is not my freaking station." I look him dead in the eye with a fake, very overly done, confused face as the train pulls up to the platform, and I can see the guard through the window. "Well, no, sir. You told me not to talk to you unless it was to tell you when we were at the next station. This is the next station. We are here, so I'm telling you." The man was visibly shaking at this point. He was spitting out words that I couldn't apprehend. When the security guard tapped him on the shoulder and asked him to step off, he exploded in a fit of rage, which ultimately ended with the police escorting him off the premises. I reckon it took him a very hefty amount of unnecessary cash and time to get to his destination after that, while I was left with a very amusing story to tell my coworkers, until I quit like 2 weeks later. All I can say is it takes a lot of cojones to stand up to a 6'5" angry dude like that, practically by yourself in a train. Camera or not, I don't know if I would take that chance. This next story is by Roger K. 1002. Sure, we can try to make money on gas. This really wasn't a gas war, but the convenience store I managed was in the country, a couple miles from one that was right off the freeway. They dictated the price, and it really didn't matter what my prices were, but I had to keep my price even or a couple cents lower than them to keep customers walking into my store. A little background, I was the grocery department manager in a large supermarket for this company. I got offered the job at this convenience store because my bosses knew I was getting antsy. At the time, the company only owned 4 supermarkets, and they told me that they weren't looking to open any others. In the next 2 years, they opened 4 more supermarkets. In other words, this was my shot at managing a store, plus it was a couple miles from where I grew up. I was hesitant about taking the job, but whenever they offered you a promotion, you took it because if you didn't, you would never be offered one again. Moving from a large supermarket and ordering product by the pallet to a small store and ordering it by the half case was a lot to take in and get used to. Eventually, I was finding my footing by hit or miss, learn from my mistakes. One thing I had to learn about gas pricing was how willing people were to travel miles to save a cent or two on a gallon of gas. Even my own dad, who lived 2 miles from me, wouldn't get gas at my store if I was higher. I had to keep a constant watch on the other gas station to make sure my prices were in line with theirs. I did this mostly by driving by there when I took deposits into town. Most of the time, I was keeping my price 1 penny below theirs. My store's owner didn't like this though. I kept convincing him that keeping my price in tune with the other stations was important to the rest of the store. Eventually, he started lecturing me about how much the gas storage tanks had cost, how much the pumps had cost, and how much the lighting had cost. He ordered me to keep the price 2 cents higher than the other station. Okay, I tried, but what could I do? He just didn't realize that he needed to keep level with the other station in order to sell the profitable items that were inside the store. From then on, I made sure my price was 2 cents higher, but I was also going to keep track of my sales over the coming months. I let it go on all summer, the summer of despair. At the end of the summer, I had my ammunition. Gas sales had dropped by half or more, but more important, so had our sales from inside the store. I'm going on memory now, so my totals are probably off somewhat. This was in the 1990s. The total sales for the store was probably down $20,000 to $25,000, and the profit he made by selling gas 2 cents higher were maybe a couple $100. So he spent around $25,000 in order to make $200. In September, I went in with my information and explained it all out to him, and he relented. He allowed me to stay at the same price as the other station. Once I did that, the business came back. Not enough to save that gloomy summer though. I don't think it even takes the average person to realize that undercutting the competition by 1 cent and directly driving sales maybe even double because of it is a no-brainer. They were overconfident in their store just being the store that everybody buys stuff at that they felt they could actually overprice it and still retain that sale. And our final story of the day is by Cleaver96. Want to make sure you paid exactly half? Sure. Long story short, roommate situation went bad. I'd been managing the utilities because it's not my first time living in an apartment, and I didn't trust her to pay the bills. We agreed to 50-50, but I'd been charging her a flat utility for most of the month. Normally that was coming in a bit under half, but I make more, so I was fine with it. She fell behind on utilities and has been playing catch-up. The lease also accidentally renewed, so there were extra month-to-month charges. I told her $720 plus $160 for February utilities, and we'd call it even. Due to her petty personality, she wanted a copy of all the bills to ensure she paid exactly half, as she was accusing me of overcharging her. Not once throughout our time in that apartment did she ever care enough to ask to see bills. And sure, could or should I have told her different prices every month? Absolutely. But working, being locked up in that apartment during the pandemic, depression from her lack of basic hygiene and cleanliness, I didn't want to tell her exactly how much each month was. I was fine with paying more as long as she just went along with paying the $160. But nope, accusing me of overcharging made me change my tune real quick. I spent all morning organizing the bills and creating a spreadsheet showing how she has actually been paying less than half and now owes me just over $1,000. I'm still waiting on a response, but the karma has been delicious. I'm gonna be honest with OP, considering they were claiming you were overcharging them to begin with the $160, I kinda doubt you're ever going to see that money, unless there's of course some kind of law brought into it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.